Now, for more reaction to this breaking story, I'm joined by DA MP Glynnis Breytenbach. Thank you so much, Glynnis, for joining me this morning. Of course, developments this morning, not quite what you expected, or what's your opinion regarding this, what happened this morning and from what we heard?
Good morning. Yes, well, not quite what I expected. Just when you think that the ANC government can sink no lower, they surprise you and actually do. What happened today is nothing short of a disgrace. It's a joke. It makes a complete mockery of the criminal justice system in South Africa. And what the minister has in effect done is he admitted that the two departments for which he is responsible, the courts and the correctional services, have ceased to function completely. What he's admitted is just abject failure, and if he had an ounce of integrity, he would resign. If anybody who took part in this charade today thinks that any South African believes this nonsense, then they're making a big mistake.
Of course,
this is clearly engineered only to benefit Jacob Zuma. I'm quite sure that he's the first person to benefit from this remission process, coincidentally. So he walked in and walked out. It's an absolute joke. It's an insult to every single South African. And it underscores that the ANC has no regard for the rule of law, and that some people remain more equal than others.
But of course, we heard earlier from the minister that the special remission process has reportedly benefited not just Zuma but over 9,000 other inmates. So he's just one of the many other thousands benefiting from this. And then, of course, also saying that President Cyril Ramaphosa didn't have a direct role in all of this, and also himself. What's your opinion on that?
Again, it's absolute nonsense. Of course, we will immediately request the record of decision of both these decisions, try and determine as accurately as we can, bearing in mind that it probably won't be an honest process, but try and determine when this process of remissions was started. The Department of Correctional Service has failed completely to add any significant bed spaces to South African prisons, despite 45% overcrowding in the last 5 years. And now all of a sudden overcrowding has become so urgent that a remission is needed of 9,500 plus prisoners, because they were at pains to point out that 9,500 is the minimum. So 9,500 plus convicted criminals are going to be let loose on the South African public in the next 2 months. None of them being freed with the alacrity and urgency that Zuma was freed this morning, of course. And to suggest that they will be under the supervision of community corrections is another, woeful joke, because community corrections already can't function. They're so under-resourced that they already cannot do their job, and in fact don't do their job. And to burden them with an extra 9,500 plus people just means that the job that they're not doing, they will continue to not do. So that is of absolutely no comfort to any South African. And the confluence of coincidences here is just a slap in the face and an insult to every single South African. A very small child could see through this process.
And of course, there's been this big question around, and I think you just mentioned a bit, about that as well. The timing of all of this. Do you think this was definitely something that was planned way beforehand?
I don't necessarily think it was planned way beforehand. I think that even the fire in Makado was too much of a coincidence. And to suddenly have to rehouse 3,500 prisoners, and so this is a reason for this urgency. It's just utter nonsense. And of course, this scheme was set in motion when they lost the matter in the Constitutional Court. Another way had to be found to accommodate Zuma, and this is what they've come up with. So
you would say it's special. You would say it's special treatment.
Patently, culpably special treatment.
All right. And, there are also concerns raised about, whether Zuma will remain under house arrest after his release. What's the government's plans here regarding this, if any?
The government makes it up as it goes along. That's pretty obvious. So, what the position will be is remains to be seen. But the fact of the matter is that he had to Tobachale can wash his hands, his sunglasses at 7:30 in the morning hands, in innocence, because he decided Zuma has to go back to prison. Lamola can wash his hands in innocence because he's just the minister giving effect to the decisions of the president, and the president's going to wash his hands, probably be shocked in the process, and say that he made this decision upon advice because of the overcrowding in prisons. It's just nonsense, absolute nonsense, and no one can ever believe it.
And just very lastly, Glynnis, maybe just detail again, what exactly will the DA be doing now? What steps will you be taking regarding this?
Well, it sets a very, very dangerous precedent. It also gives us an indication of how the ANC intend to deal with any of their cohorts who get sentenced to imprisonment. So, this isn't the end of Zuma's legal woes. He has other bigger fish to worry about in the future. Other highly placed ANC officials are, if the NPA ever get their act together and prosecute anybody, are facing long-term imprisonment. And this is an indication of how they intend to deal with prison sentences for those people. So it's not something that we can just let lie, and we'll have to consider it very carefully. We'll have to revisit the legislation. I've looked at it quickly, but there hasn't been much time. And give serious thought to taking this matter on review, because in my view it sets a very dangerous precedent.
All right. Thank you so much, Glynnis Breytenbach from the DA, just giving her opinion on the proceedings from this morning. Of course, we know the special remission has been granted to Jacob Zuma, the former president, and more than 9,000 other inmates.